Welcome to Three Films and a Podcast, the show where Destiny brought together three friends to enhance each other's cinematic journey by watching three new movies in a series of themed rounds. There is no claim of ownership on any film footage used in this episode, as all film footage is owned in its entirety by the copyright holders. And just like every car in Too Fast, Too Furious, this podcast contains spoilers. Enjoy!
You love Paul, and you do not want anything bad to happen to Paul. But Paul has visions, and Paul has seen you die. Does this sound like you? Then you might be Duncan, Idaho, in the 2021 straight to HBO Dune, as adapted by Denis Villeneuve.
Indeed.
Welcome back.
Straight to streaming, baby.
I forgot that's what happened here, right? Because that's when like HBO Max was like showing it on there for a month and then in the theaters.
Yeah, because COVID.
What happened? Why did that happen? Is it anything?
You know,
Not really
I
sure.
feel like it was a COVID thing, and I feel like that's right when
Never heard of it.
I feel like that's right when Warner Brothers like merged with HBO or something, and they were trying to like get subscribers. They were just putting everything on there. I don't remember exactly, but it was something like that.
I just remember, I mean, like my bad jokes aside, but like right during the Oscars, they pulled Judas and the Black Messiah off of HBO because it ran out of like its 6-week window. It was like right during Oscars voting. It's like, why are you guys doing this? Just leave it on there. Like you made the rule. You can break it. Like just leave it there.
Yeah, you
like,
don't need to follow this.
No one's going to be mad if you leave it on here. And it's just like, nope, we're taking it off. We said 6 weeks and it's out of here. So I don't know. Ridiculous.
We said what we said.
Look, we don't lie to our subscribers.
Yeah.
We would never do that.
Tell the
Never
truth
break
to the
the
max.
trust. But we will pull your favorite content, and we will promote strange things that because of a new merger we've done. We will do that, but we will not break our 6-week rule.
We will delete Batgirl in its entirety. No one can ever see it. We won't lie to you.
We will take away the things that you want. We promise you that.
Yeah.
I will say, like, it's been interesting to see what streaming platforms have done over the last several months in the content that they're removing. And on one hand, like, it totally sucks because they're like, awesome shows are getting canceled. Obviously, the writers aren't getting paid for some of the work that they're doing. And so there's like that side of things. But I think on the refreshing side of things, and I hate to say refreshing when like a lot of bad there is happening, but when all these releases happen on streaming, there was some question marks as to whether the film industry could thrive back into, theaters. And so I think the silver lining here is that we've seen an uptick in movie attendance.
Yeah.
That was the concern. And so I'm happy to see that seemingly back. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not in the numbers, but
Tom Cruise saved the theaters.
Tom Cruise,
Tom.
he did it.
Maverick.
I have a random question for you guys. We're talking about streaming platforms. Which one of all the platforms out there do you think is like doing it right? I know I'm putting you guys on the spot, but I've just been wondering about this. Like, which one is winning? Like, content aside, you know what I mean? Like, which one do you think is presenting the content that they have the best? Because
I struggle with that because I feel like each of them are individually trying different things to seemingly make what they're doing work. And I don't know what version of which one I could say is the right way, because it feels like one might be doing it the right way, and then it feels like, oh, they've changed it. Now, like Disney Plus just deleted a ton of their library.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I feel like Disney does it pretty well. And I'll explain why, but what were you saying, Ben?
Oh, no, I think in recent times, surprisingly, Peacock has kind of like come through, like specifically with, the Vanderpump Scandal going on. And they're just like, we're going to show it on Bravo that night. But the next day you get an uncensored extended version of the reunion. And it's like, yes, everyone wants that. Do that for every episode of TV. Like do your TV one that needs to be, bleeped and all that stuff. But like, give us the uncut stuff. And Peacock, it's a small number of episodes now, but I think the viewership has been huge. And it's like, capitalize on that. It's just so weird. It's like they have The Office, and sometimes I'll get on there and I have to like dig and search to try to find it. Because rather than like use my brain, just like go to search and hit Office, I just assume it's going to be on like the front page. It's like, you guys wanted this off Netflix and you have it. And it's like, if I want to look for that or Parks and Rec, like sometimes it's, it's like the 12th row of like, what are you guys doing? Like, this is why everyone used Netflix, was for The Office.
Right. Right.
So to an extent, they're using it right. I will say, content wise, I think HBO Max is the last one I'd want to get rid of. Like, I think if I had to start like trimming them, I like what they have. I mean, it's just such a wide variety from all the old Warner Brothers movies and stuff like that. So
Miyazaki
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I'd have to agree with that, Ben. And what you were talking about, like when you struggle to find The Office on Peacock or whatever, it's that compared, or that in hand with your Vanderpump example, is why I thought Disney was doing streaming right so well, because it was so well segmented. Like, if you wanted to watch a Marvel property, they had a tile for Marvel. They had a tile for Pixar. It was just so intuitive and easy to find the things that you were looking for without using that pesky search bar. Because I never use it either. It's like, I could just go search for like Thor: The Dark World.
Yes.
I don't know why I chose that find as an example. But I could if I wanted to.
They'd pull up 10 other movies before they pulled up Thor: The Dark World.
Right.
Did you mean Ragnarok?
Right, I just feel like it's just strange. I was listening to another podcast and they were talking about this, how you can't go on Paramount Plus and just go to like the MTV section or the Comedy Central section or the whatever section. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's so strange, because all of, Peacock, Paramount Plus, any of these platforms, they all have their like tentpole IPs and tentpole studios and all these things. And like, I don't know why they don't lean into that branding. It's the same thing about, Max ditching the HBO part. Like, I doubt in 10 years that's going to be a big deal. I see what they're trying to do. They're trying to not get away from HBO, but they're trying to make it all one recognizable brand, and HBO will be a part of that as opposed to being the brand. But like, in the current, it's like, no, HBO was the reason that people use this service. Like, like I already had like the fact that we get all the stuff you were talking about with HBO Max, all the Warner library and stuff. Like, to me, that was like a nice little treat, because I was there for the HBO stuff. So I just don't know why. It's strange why these streamers don't lean into the brands that we already recognize. Like, I get they're trying to make it this new all-encompassing tentpole, but I don't know. It's just strange. And I do feel like Disney was doing it right, but I haven't been on there for a while. So it sounds like they deleted a bunch of stuff, but I'll have to take your word for that, Matt.
I have two quick things. This is like, first one, pertains to a small Venn diagram crossover of HBO fans and people that live in Utah. But it feels like it's going to be like the Delta Center. Like, we're never going to call it the Energy Solutions Arena. Like, it's going to be HBO. Like, I don't want to call it Max, it's like, and maybe like the Delta Center is happening. Maybe in 20 years, it'll come back and it'll be HBO again. It's like, no, sorry guys, we fucked up. Like, we just need to call it HBO. It can't be Max.
Ryan Smith needs to acquire HBO Max, because he turns everything back to how they were
just
when he
get it back.
Up.
Yeah.
So it'll be Delta Center Max?
Delta Center Plus, yes. So I took that trip to Japan, and they had a bunch of like those machines where like you put in a quarter and like something drops down. Like, I can't think of exactly what they're called, but they had one, and it was all little posters of phase 1 of Marvel, of the MCU.
Oh, rad.
And I was looking at all the movies, and I was like, man, I love almost all of these movies. There's like one I really don't want, and maybe a couple that I'd be bummed about, but like, man, I got the chance to get, Guardians, just like all this stuff, you know what I mean? It's like, there's so many good things. Yeah. And then like, what do I fucking pull out? But Thor, the Dark World. That's the one I get is Thor, Dark World.
There's like 10 to 1 Dark Worlds. For every one Iron Man, there's 10 Dark Worlds.
Yeah, they had so many of those. So I was like, oh, God damn.
So how much money do you spend in that machine, Ben?
I don't know. I should have I waited till I got home to open it. That was like the foolish thing. Like, I should have just like probably bought 5 and just like, but I was like, it's going to be a real surprise. We'll see what happens. Like, of course. But like you said, it's probably 10 to 1. It's like all these Dark Worlds. And then it's like, all right, we'll throw in an Ant-Man now. Or here you go. You can have a Winter Soldier. But
that's awesome.
I was like, of course, that's what I end up with.
Oh, man. That's great. Dune. Right?
Back while we're here.
Remember Dune, guys?
Yeah. Not that we need to introduce ourselves now, but we are 3 Films and a Podcast. You've found us. We prefer you watch us on YouTube, but you can find us anywhere that you listen to or watch pods, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, everywhere. And I'm joined here by Ben Longhorn and Tyler Beck.
Hello.
As always, This is the second movie in our remakes round. We covered Dune 84 last week. This is the grown-up version in every way, pretty much.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that. But I chose Dune because Tyler wanted me to. We were trying to figure out movies that had been remade, and I hadn't picked mine. Simple as that. And Ben hadn't seen either of the movies, so we just figured, you know what? Let's do a Ben pick. Let's go Dune.
I like that.
And found the pitch in my voice.
Tyler can be very convincing.
The pitch just right.
He's got a pitch that is very convincing.
Pick Dune. Like, all right, yeah, I guess we'll pick Dune.
Yeah.
Tempted that Bene Gesserit voice of yours.
Oh yeah, he's got it down. It's very, very convincing.
That weirding way, baby.
But since Ben was the I guess Dune virgin, for lack of a better term, I would like to hear about him losing his Dune virginity.
Well,
in slow, intricate detail.
I was very impressed with it, but I wish it had been bigger. I'll put it that way. I was holding out, not like difficult, like rigidly, I guess, but I was hopeful. I missed the theater run. I missed the theatrical run. And then I got to the point where it's like, you know what? I'm just going to wait for part 2 to come out because I'm pretty sure they're going to re-release it in theaters. I feel like I need to see it there. So I'll just wait till it comes back. And then it got picked, which I honestly was excited about. I'm like, cool. Like I want to see it. I've wanted to see it for so long, but I was just like, whatever, stubbornly, like, I'll just wait. So that's where my reference comes from, is that like, I loved it. And even when it comes back into theaters, like, I think I'll go see it again because it feels like a movie that deserves to be seen in theaters.
Oh,
like,
for sure. Yeah. I need to see this on the big screen.
Yeah. I'm bummed that I missed it on that initial run and just, hadn't seen it. So that's definitely something I'm going to do. I mean, we could be here for 3 hours talking about what it did better than Dune 84, but for me, like the biggest thing, pun intended, like, is the scale. Like, it really, like, everything just felt like ginormous. It felt like
huge,
vast. It felt, exactly. It's like, I really loved that about this. Granted, we've had, improvements in technology and all that kind of stuff, but Villeneuve like really knew how to use it to his advantage because they seem super small in the desert landscape when they need to, and there are certain scenes that happen. And I'm just like, thinking back to Dune 84. It's like, was he even in the desert? Like, I don't remember any of that, it's like, but this was like, oh no, they're in the arid desert. Like I totally get a sense for where they're at. Like I feel like I smell the heat, like that kind of a thing. Like you can just like, it's all there. And just same obviously with the scale of like it's not necessarily like a temple, but whatever it is that they go to on Arrakis at first, and just the scale of the town and all that. I don't know. I loved it. I was very, very impressed with that. I thought Timothée Chalamet was great. I mean, talk about a cast, dude. Like everyone here is throwing heaters. I feel like even beardless Momoa, I had to get over the beardless part, but he's really good. He's shocking. So good. Yeah, it's strange. Like it just kind of feels like, well, what? Oh, okay, I haven't seen this in a very long time.
Did either of your dads wear like a beard or a mustache when you were growing up?
Yeah. My dad was a beard guy.
That. Like when your dad,
Steve got curious with the mustache every once in a while.
Yeah. It made me think about that.
I've never met Steve, but that doesn't surprise me.
I guess, Steve with the mustache. But it made me think of a good friend of mine, Brett, growing up. Like his stepdad always had a beard, and we went over one time and he was clean shaven, and because he had some ingrown hairs, like that's why he shaved, because he had to like take care of that. And it felt as jarring as seeing Jason Momoa without a beard. I was like, oh, whoa, okay, this is so weird. Like, and that was my thought. I was like, oh, I wonder if it's some ingrown hairs. But yeah, like Rebecca Ferguson's great. The little bit of the Hannibal Lecter amount of time that we see Zendaya, like she's really good, as well. Yeah. Like, I don't know. I don't really have anything bad to say about this movie, which I kind of assumed was going to be the case. It's like
Yeah.
I loved everything. Having read the book, I feel like it was as true as it could be, given, I think splitting into 2 movies is going to be really smart because the book is pretty well split like that. So I think he did a great job, of staying true to that first half. I don't know. I'm just stoked that I saw it. Obviously we'll talk about it more, but just like, I'm excited to see it on the big screen once it comes back. Like it feels like something that deserves that.
You are 100% right. So I'm actually surprised. I'm the only one that saw it on the big screen. It's actually kind of funny. Like going to this movie is kind of is an interesting checkpoint in my personal life, because this is when I had first left Portland and we were starting to live on the road, Alex and I. And this is when we were staying in Northern California, and we actually saw it in Dublin at a Regal Theaters that I'm sure you're familiar with, Ben. Mm-hmm. I saw it there on their IMAX screen. And
oh, dang.
I like I said, I had tried to read the book, and I had read like the first little bit, and we listened to some of it on tape on a few drives or whatever, and I just could never pick it up and finish it, and so much stuff in my life changed that it was hard to sit and read a book. Anyways, that's not important. I went and saw it at that IMAX, and I went in like stone cold sober, just sat in my little seat. And it's like the closest I've felt watching a movie to like having like a hallucinogenic response, or like it was like a drug like state. It was like a what's the word? An intoxicating state, right? Like I sat there and I was just like slack jawed and just like, for lack of a better word, just flabbergasted. I'm like, what? Like I was completely transfixed. It put me in like this complete dream state. And it really felt like when the movie was over, I had just woken up from a dream. Like I have these like flashbacks of like a camera swirling around Zendaya in the desert. You know what I mean? It's just like everything about those scenes in particular. And frankly, from start to finish, in my mind was like perfect. And I went back and I looked, and I only rated this 4 stars on Letterboxd. I'm not really, and I remember why. It's because I was so upset at the ending. I didn't know it was going to be a 2-parter going in. I wasn't upset in the way that I was upset because I just had to wait for so long. You know what I mean? And it really reminded me of the feeling I had watching The Fellowship of the Rings. And I realized it's the first time since The Fellowship of the Rings that I've had that feeling in a theater. And I had kind of forgotten about that because it just got so swept up in like the craziness of my travels and where I was going. So like, again, starting a new adventure, we're out on the road, living in an RV. I don't know. It's just interesting to watch this movie at 2 points where my life is like changing dramatically. You know what I mean? But when I really think back on it, I just couldn't possibly love this movie more. And even when on rewatch, I only bumped it up to 4.5 stars just because I'm like, I just want to sit with it. I'm just, like I said, I'm trying to be more like judicious with my 5-star reviews. You know what I mean? But I feel like I could ramble on and on forever about this because I just feel like it's just perfect. And understanding the necessity of the 2 parts, especially having watched the 1984 Dune. I'm like, oh no, this has to be 2 movies. Like it made me really appreciate the decision even more. You know what I mean? And I think being just enveloped by that IMAX screen, just this movie is just perfect for that, because even watching it on my little 15-inch laptop, you get just as sucked into it, but to just be completely wrapped up in the IMAX experience is just was something else, man. It was pretty incredible. It's one of my favorite in theater experiences in a while. So if it does come out, I really do think, do whatever you can to go see it, whether it's you, Benjamin, or whoever's listening to this podcast. Like if you haven't seen this on the big screen and you have any interest at all, and for some reason you haven't seen it up to this point, like stop the podcast, come back in a few months or whatever and catch it. But yeah, I just I don't know if I could say enough good things about this movie. I love every second of it.
Yeah,
and even more so on rewatch, actually.
I definitely liked it more on rewatch as well. Not to say that I didn't already really enjoy it. I was familiar with the Dune. So there was a TV series, a mini series, I think, in the late 90s of Dune that was cool. Like I had remembered like the spice and the blue eyes, and a little bit of like the political turmoil, but didn't remember a ton of it. And so when I saw that this was being done and done by Denis, I was like, oh, this is going to be sweet. And so my expectations were super high. And then, the cast, and Dune 84 was a stacked cast too.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting to compare what a stacked cast looked like in 84 compared to 2021. Right. But I mean, this has like huge, actors doing like the biggest work of their lives at this time. So it was cool to see that. One of my favorite, well, I guess before I get into my thoughts, when I first fired up Dune, like Angie was watching, and Angie's a movie gal, like she'll watch most things with me. But there are things that just like are not her flavor at all. And anything that's like earnestly science fiction, because I mean, Star Wars is one thing because it's just like popcorn and all that. But anything that's like science fiction, textbook science fiction, she's just like checks out completely. And the first time I watched this, like I fell asleep, but Angie like watched the whole thing and was like, is Dune my favorite movie? Like she loved Dune.
I love that awesome. So much.
I was like so surprised. And like this time on the rewatch, she's like, I know I loved Dune, but I don't know if I can get up for like another 2.5 hour movie. Like, and sure enough, like watched the whole thing again, loved it again. Like it's just legitimately an awesome story. And
I mean, I had similar situation in our household here. Cause like, I mean, Ashley was up for kind of watching stuff with me, but that kind of science fiction isn't always like her thing. And I was like, well, I'm gonna throw it on, like, cause she had some other stuff she was doing last night. I was like, well, I'll just throw it on while you're working, whatever. And then slowly like that stuff went away and she just like started just earnestly watching the movie with me, it's like, oh, cool. Like this is good. And then we had to leave it with like 50 minutes left. But it was one of those things where it's like, we'll watch it together tomorrow. Like you can't watch this without me. It's like, we're finishing this together. Like that wasn't said, but it was like kind of expressed. I'm like, I don't think I can finish this by myself. I think she needs to see this too. So it was a surprise for me. And, but I think it just speaks to how good it is. Even people who may not consider themselves sci-fi people or whatever, like for a movie that had or a book, that had an influence on Star Wars and everything, like this still plays really well, even if you're not into all the sci-fi stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting. We all have such strong partner stories with this movie, but put a pin in mine because it needs to come later. But it's just interesting to me that all of our partners had an experience with us watching this movie because that doesn't happen a lot on this podcast. But anyways,
and I guess my thoughts might speak to like what makes it extra appealing. Independent. I mean, you have Denis, who's just an excellent director. The cast is just so good. But a couple of the choices that I really liked in this adaptation is number one, the color. He toned back the color a ton, like just made it very, I don't know. And to me, that makes it a little more approachable. It kind of made it feel, it made it feel foreign enough that you're like in this different like world and environment, but it didn't like, because sci-fi can get like weird. And this had as we saw in Dune 84, this had every opportunity to be super, super weird. And Denis like took it almost like and someone on the internet's going to get mad at this comparison, but almost like a Chris Nolan Batman route, where it's like, this is like a more grown up, like more believable, less comic booky version of
it seems story. More like what we speaking as like a human would consider to be like normal. You know what I mean? It doesn't look necessarily alien. It does look like what this species would create,
could believably
in the future.
Yeah, exactly.
Like with all the technology, all that available technology, and who knows what knowledge it carries on or whatever. It's a believable looking future to me.
You could buy into exactly. Where Chris Nolan has like the Tumbler as the Batmobile, it's like it's not just like a sleek black car with a Batman symbol on it. It's like, no, this is what a guy would drive around.
It's a military grade thing. It's interesting you say that stuff, because one thing that Ashley brought up while we were watching is like, oh, it's kind of like Game of Thrones in space, because early on there's a lot of like the different discussion about families and stuff.
Totally.
And even as we leave off, Paul going with the Fremens is like kind of Jon Snow-ish, going there's definitely hints of it here. You can see that. It's
they make poor tactical battle decisions. They run into a blaster fight with daggers. Like, what the fuck are you doing?
Exactly.
Anyways,
but just to speak to how the realism is there with this, because I think what we've talked about Dune and people who don't like sci-fi, it's kind of the same with Game of Thrones with fantasy. Like, there are probably people who loved Game of Thrones who've like never read a fantasy genre book and wouldn't necessarily consider themselves into it, but they loved the show because the show was so well done. And I think this just kind of echoes that. Like, it's a parallel 100% for me.
Yeah. Oh, totally. The other thing I just wanted to shout was, obviously, like, this movie is just shot so beautifully. Like, there are just so many awesome shots, but
incredible.
I feel like the direction, like, Denis just like hit it out of the park, because you have the performances are obviously very effective and they elicit all the appropriate emotions that you'd want to feel. But like, sometimes it's not even the actors acting that was like moving me or like making me feel certain things that I feel like I hadn't felt in movies before. Like, for example, I'm just going to give the two examples. Like, Paul's leaving his planet Caladan. And I've seen in movies where someone's leaving their home planet. Like, I'm a big Star Wars fan. I've seen Luke leave his planet. Like, we've seen people leave their planet for the last time before. And for whatever reason, this time, just by the way that he framed it and the way that he told that visual story, I like felt super sad for him going to leaving the planet. The other thing was when, after the box incident, when his mom enters the room and is like half expecting to see like a dead body and then sees Paul there, like, there was like a wave of emotion for me. It's like, holy crap. Like, I felt the relief, and it had everything to do with her performance, but also just like the framing, the setup of all that. It's like, man, he just destroyed this. Like, he did so good.
So good.
Well, and it's like, in my opinion, it seems in this movie like every part of production was perfectly in sync. Like, Denis got the performances and the camera movements that he needed. The editor that he worked with, I'm entirely sure who that person was, but like, the editor matched that pace perfectly.
Know that you're loved.
The phenomenal score in this movie matched the tone and the pace and everything so well. Like, everything everyone just knocked out of the park. And it was like, spoiler alert, the Nuggets just won the finals. And they're like the Nuggets, perfectly in sync, like, it's just that it all came together at the right time, and they just completely knocked it out of the park. I don't know how else to say it, but I think that's the most impressive thing for this movie is it's just so perfectly crafted. And beyond that, it's also telling a really cool story with really great performances. And it's just, it's pretty astonishing stuff when you think about the logistics of all that coming together,
Well, it probably, just so you know, the Academy backs you up on that, because Joe Walker did win the Academy Award for Achievement in Film Editing for Dune.
Okay.
So
deservedly so.
Yeah, he's been nominated twice before for 12 Years a Slave and Arrival, and then he won this last year for Dune.
Nice. That's awesome.
Well, cheers to that guy.
Cheers to Joe.
Yeah. Thank you, Joe.
Good job,
you
Joe.
are loved.
Big fan. Like and subscribe.
I guess to go along with all of that, I loved there are elements of this story that Dune 84 I think tried to convey, and it had to have been in the text. I have not read the book, so I'm the outlier here. It had to have been in the text because I feel like Dune 84 attempted it, and this one just like did so amazing. It was just how haunting some of these societies are.
Yeah,
like they're all very distinct, but you have the Bene Gesserit. But I'm saying Denis and Bene Gesserit. Just like those black cloaks and tall hats.
So cool.
The Imperial like army that comes to the House Atreides.
Yeah.
The House Harkonnen. Like it's crazy how effective just the visual design of them all were. And then the sound design, just to shout out the sound design. Again, you could go super crazy with sci-fi and try to make something sound like, insane, where they went they sounded otherworldly. Like those hums and everything still sounded like foreign, but familiar enough that it's just like Tyler, you said, like believably in the future.
Yeah,
like, I know something could sound like that.
The logical progression of all the conglomerate, like all the cultures of the world melding together to this point to where, 100%.
Tyler, if you had to take this take this movie, cram it onto a teeny phone and show it to somebody to get them to watch it, I think you know where I'm going with this. We're going to our elevator pitch. Elevator pitch segment.
The elevator.
Cannot speak. The elevator pitch round, or elevator pitch segment. What scene are you showing?
Round.
The remakes round.
So yeah.
Before we get started, does anyone want to get out?
So this is where my partner story comes in. I'm going to choose this scene because it literally happened as a real-time elevator pitch. So I didn't ask Alex to watch this movie with me. We don't watch a lot of the same movies. I didn't peg her as being someone that would be into the sci-fi of it all. And she was also going to go to bed. So I was like, I'm just watch this when she goes to sleep. And then as I'm watching this, she woke up at the scene she woke up right at the end of the movie, right when Jessica and Paul are running away from the sandworm and they find Zendaya and Javier Bardem and, they meet the Fremen. And so I'm going to pick that because it literally convinced her that she wanted to watch the movie. She wasn't even watching it with sound. I had my headphones on. She was just laying there watching the visuals. And she's like, I actually would want to watch this with you. And so, hopefully it does come out on big screens again so we can go to the theater and check it out. But it was, I normally wouldn't pick the end of a movie, but I watched that segment work in real time. And even though she knows how it's going to end, I still don't even think knowing how this movie ends really matters for this particular movie. No. Because the actual ending of the story kind of happens when the Atreides get wiped out, right? Like that's the logical end of a story. Game of Thrones did this a lot. Like we watched what happened between the beginning and the ends for the majority of the story, the majority of the series, right? Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Like most of the story was setting up what would be the end of like a movie. I can't can't think of how to describe this. The whole series in itself leads up to what would have been the movie, right?
Yeah.
Like whatever.
So if you're in the comments, help Tyler explain that. Just kidding.
Will someone please get into my brain and try to figure out what I'm trying to say? No, I just think I think the scene itself is really cool. You get to see a lot of the star power. You see Zendaya's in it. You see Javier Bardem's in it. You wouldn't necessarily know at what point in the movie this is taking place, as long as I cut it off before the credits rolled. Mm-hmm. Similar ending to Fellowship of the Ring, like I mentioned earlier. So I don't know. It might entice someone to want to catch up for the next movie, knowing that it's the end of the movie that they haven't seen yet. So, and I had another pick that I'll share with you when you guys are done, as long as you don't take it.
Cool. My pick is, it seems like a scene when you're watching it, it might be a bit of a, you obviously understand the whole context of it, but I feel like this scene works well enough that like it could almost work at the beginning of a movie of just like, the pre-movie like teaser of like, wait, how do we get to this point? That kind of a thing. And it's when Dr. Kynes, after she sends Paul and Lady Jessica off, to the ornithopter thing, she's like, oh, I'll get there, don't worry, I'll do my own thing. She takes her own route, sets the thumper in the sand to draw the attention to the sandworm to come, and like we see her like kind of walk to the side, pull out like her hooks because she's ready to like just like dig in and take that worm for a ride, so to speak. And as she's just like standing there, and like we have no dialogue during any of this stuff, like it's all just like her doing her thing, and then out of nowhere she's like stabbed in the back. And I think it's so interesting that like what we see, the liquid we see is like the water, like it's not even like her blood at first that we see coming out, like it's the water, and then her just like rolling down the hill and the Sardaukar like kind of going after her, and then her just starting to like pound her fist in the sand, for the thump, like to draw the attention. and then we see them all to like start to fall into the worm, and we see like a little bit of like the worm, and then just like cuts. I love that whole sequence, and I think it could work really well. Where like there's no dialogue, you have no frame of reference for who this person is or who the people attacking her are. And I just think it's a cool scene to show.
Goes into the opening scroll.
Yeah, exactly. like I think it could. I think it could have done something like that. So then it's like, here, this is like, you want to know, like, well, what's that big like monster that just swallowed all of them, because you don't even really get to see it at all, like all that kind of stuff. So I just thought that'd be kind of a cool scene. Like, oh, why is she pounding the sand with her fist? And then it all like comes to fruition. So I like that scene a lot. It felt like a good out of context thing you could show somebody without really spoiling anything, you know. Maybe when they watch it, they'd be like, oh, I remember her, she's the doctor, but I don't know that it really spoils anything.
That reminds me of something that this movie does really effectively, and that's they teach the audience enough about what we should understand about Arrakis in different ways, whether it's dialogue with people, whether it's just like Paul like studying. But you buy into the fact that Paul knows way more about it than we do. It's like he studied this crap, so I fully expect him to be able to like understand all this stuff that's going on there. And then as an audience, you're just like kind of learning as you go, just like you would if you just like arrived on the planet. So I thought that was pretty cool. And that's probably what helps you be like taken away there.
Hold on. Weird sidebar here. Do they have movies on Dune, or can you only watch instructional stuff? Like,
there's some dramedies.
They have some technology to bend time and space, but like, did they? Like, I don't know. Maybe in the future we learn that all this mindless entertainment isn't good for us. And
hey, so Duncan Idaho got a sense of humor from somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. All they have is reruns of Duck Dynasty. It's all you can watch there.
Like
instructional videos of Duck Dynasty.
What do you think? What do we think? Paul Atreides' Letterboxd top 4 is.
Oh man, honestly, it's funny. It'd probably be all emo stuff that like Timothée Chalamet's in. It'd be like Little Women and Beautiful Boy and stuff. Like those are probably all the movies you like. Oh, I love this stuff. Like this
Call Me by Your Name.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, or it could be like God, what's the Kubrick that we watched?
The Shining.
Not
Barry
The
Lyndon?
Shining. Barry Lyndon. Yeah.
Barry Lyndon.
Yeah, I can see like in Barry Lyndon.
Yeah, he'd be like really pretentious about it. Like actually, probably Kubrick's best work. If you think about it.
What's your favorite movie, Barry Lyndon?
Oh, I want to meet.
If your favorite movie is Barry Lyndon, please put it in the comments.
Yeah, I'd love to know.
We want you on the pod, honestly. Like, we'd cover that movie again on our Unsung Gems route. Just to,
I actually kind of want to. I'm like, to have you on. I didn't hate it, but I'm like, do I actually like this movie? Every time I see it, like a screenshot on Twitter of any of the scenes, because it's a dartboard movie for sure. You can every frame a painting, right? So I'm like, do I actually like Barry Lyndon? Do I need to watch this movie again?
I mean, I wouldn't be mad about it.
We know you're out there somewhere. Whoever loves that movie, come on our pod.
Let us know.
My elevator pitch would be The Black Bath.
Yeah.
I love The Black Bath. I love Dave Bautista standing over and just like basically giving his report, and you don't even know to what yet. He's just like mumbling pretty much. But it's like very like, I don't know. He was so locked into that role. It was awesome.
Oh yeah.
He did a great job. I really enjoyed him in this. Like, honestly, I like, speaking of that scene, Stellan Skarsgård was really good.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you say he's locked in, who are you talking about, Stellan or Dave?
They're both.
I had to give Dave his flowers, but
for sure.
I mean, Stellan,
for sure.
I'm glad that we just covered Good Will Hunting, so that we could see the range here. It's pretty crazy.
So good.
But yeah, I mean, I love the idea of being in a hotel room, flipping the channels, and then seeing Dave Bautista talk to this black bath, and then like a big giant bald baby emerges from it. And like mutters like, okay, that means we're done. And then like just submerges again. Yeah.
What about the Fremen? Kill them all.
Were you guys surprised that he was fine with not being proof of death? Because that right then Batista saying like, they for sure died because no one could have survived.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought I'm like, man, not that I like want the Harkonnens to win by any means, but I'm like, I would have thought he for sure seemed to be the type that would be like, no, I need to see proof of death.
Give me the body.
What I mean? Like, that's the one thing I was like, that's the way the story's told, I guess. I don't really know. That was the one thing I was like, that's a question. He wouldn't have just gone back to his bath, but I don't know. Maybe he was real.
When you have someone so hurting, convincing, as Dave Bautista, just so convincing, kind of like you convincing me to pick Dune.
Yep. Yeah. There it is.
That's true.
Don't know. Full circle. No, but that would be my pitch. And that I remember seeing that scene briefly in the trailer and just thinking like, this movie's gonna be awesome.
Yeah. I wanted to give a quick shout out to my original elevator pitch before I watched one happen in real time and changed my mind.
Let's do it.
I loved the training sequence. That when we see the shields, they actually, they got the shields right in this version of Dune.
Yeah.
And we watch Paul and Gurney Halleck training. Obviously, Gurney Halleck played by Josh Brolin. And I think it's a really good elevator pitch just because it's cool to watch a cool fight scene with cool. It's like the opposite of Star Wars, right? Like in here, the electric thing is the shield as opposed to the sword, which I think is kind of fun. But that's all, it's always fun to watch like a sci-fi fight. But I just and I love the way they're setting up how dangerous the Fremen are. And that's the part that I love the most is his line reading of the Fremen are brutal. The way he says brutal, I'm like, oh, these, like, there's like real like fear and respect and like danger in that voice. Like it seemed like a person who has like been hand to hand with the Fremen and knows what they're capable of. And I was like, I was in, man. Like Brolin's a great actor. I usually like anything he's in, but just like he knocked that out of the park, and it somehow overtook the box scene as my favorite scene in the movie.
It was so good. I mean, along those lines, my backup was Momoa like fighting the Duncan, I guess, fighting all the Sardaukar in the hallway.
Yeah.
Like he's going like 1-on-15, and like almost does it, almost pulls it off. But just watching like the way that he's going through it and you start running, like hitting his chest to put the shield on. There's like, all right, let's fuck shit up. It's like, that was a cool scene as well. Just seeing his skills, in
love fighting. Love a good last stand scene in the movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
This is such a good Momoa movie just because his character rules in this. And I also feel like he gave this character so much more than they gave this character in Dune 84.
Yeah.
Totally.
Like, you do not feel this way at all about Duncan, Idaho.
No,
like all you remember about him is his name. It's like, it's kind of a dumb name.
True. Yeah. I'm literally trying to think like, wait, who even played him in that movie? Like, what did he even do? I genuinely can't remember.
Yeah,
exactly. But I want to say about Momoa, every time I see him casted in a movie, I kind of roll my eyes. I'm like, oh, great. And I don't ever anticipate enjoying his performance, but I always do. And this one just happens to be like, in my opinion, one of his best performances.
Oh, he's awesome for sure.
Yeah, I loved him.
You know what time it is? It's Backwards Rushmore time. And for those of you unfamiliar with Backwards Rushmore, we did it last episode. I figured we'd do it in both episodes.
Run it back.
Run it back. After all, we are covering remakes. So this is the Backwards Rushmore remake.
These are OR scrubs. Oh, are they?
And I want to know, so the way our Rushmore typically works is we pick, let's say now I can't even think of one.
I mean, we could do, like remakes that are better than the original. Would have been like maybe a theme we would have done before.
Exactly. And so each of us would have picked one of those movies to fill the Rushmore remakes better than the original. And that would be this one. But we're flipping it and we're saying, you know what? What hypothetical Rushmore would you create and have this be a part of that Rushmore?
Yeah.
I
love the evolution of Rushmore as we've gone along.
It's been good. I like it.
It's been fun. Yeah. Ben, what Rushmore are you creating to put Dune on?
I'm creating Zaddy Oscar Isaac Rushmore.
Ooh.
That's what I want here.
Boy, howdy.
Yeah. Give me sexy Oscar Isaac. I think this one qualifies. I think Ex Machina, those dance moves he's gotten there.
Mm-hmm.
A Most Violent Year. He's really handsome in that as well. And it might be animated, but recently having seen Across the Spider-Verse, Miguel O'Hara, it's a great performance there. So it's a toss up between that and Poe Dameron. But I'm going recency bias, and I'm going to go with Across the Spider-Verse. I know we don't need to pick movies, but as I was thinking about it, I was like, man, he's a sexy man in a lot of movies.
I just realized you filled out a whole Rushmore.
He did.
That's impressive.
On the spot.
Definitely Ex Machina. That has to be there. And then I guess
why
the
he
Most
gets paid the
Violent
big
Year is
bucks.
good too. But yeah. So yeah, Zaddy Oscar Isaac. That's my Rushmore.
Oh, I love it.
Nice.
Tyler.
That's a good one. So I actually had a different one, but during our elevator pitch talk and the last stand, Duncan's Last Stand, I'm like, I would put this on a Last Stand scene Rushmore. This would for sure be on there. I'm trying to think of what I can't think of. I know we've seen a couple recently. I'm not entirely sure what I'd put on it though, at this moment, but I'm sure. Does Helm's Deep count as a last? That's like humanity's Rohan's Last Stand, right? But they don't die. I don't know. I'm just trying to. Anytime I can talk about Helm's Deep,
yeah.
you know I like to break the rules with Helm's Deep.
You've got the Helm's Deep pass.
Yeah, it's all yours.
I don't know. I just love a good Last Stand. So yeah, I'll put this on. I was gonna do. Well, I'll wait to see what Matt says before I say what I was gonna do.
Oh man, I was going back and forth on what mine would be, and I got to go. I know he's not technically a baby, but he certainly looks like one. Baron Harkonnen.
Yeah.
I'm going to say giant baby movies, and I'm putting this up there with Spirited Away.
Yep.
Okay.
Geez. I don't even know if there's another one. I can't even think of another one.
Baby Herman
is Fat Bastard
Roger
a big
Rabbit.
baby?
Okay, yeah.
Fat Bastard.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, I like that. There you go. Done. My first Last Stand thing I thought of was, having just talked about Game of Thrones, was it's TV, but Jon Snow, Battle of the Bastards, that's just got to be one of the best. I think we'd have to give it an honorary spot because that's good enough. It deserves to be there.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like there has to be their last stand. I feel like they have to die.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Do they have to die or do they have to think it's going to be their last stand?
I think for this Rushmore that they have to to die.
All right. Fair enough.
Yeah. So I was gonna say weird voice movies or otherworldly voices. You know what I mean? That sort of thing. Do you guys remember the movie? Oh gosh, now I can't even remember the name of it. It's a Kevin Bacon movie, and it's it's a horror movie from.
Tremors?
It's not Footloose. It's very close to Footloose. No, it's a.
I
don't know. It's some
Invisible Man one where he is that the one?
No, I can't remember. I can try to look it up, I guess. But it's like a possession movie, and a little girl gets possessed, and it's he asks her, Kevin Bacon asks her hey, what's wrong? What's going on? And she responds you're not talking to Sarah, you're talking to me, and it turns into this demonic voice. I don't know. That scene freaked me the fuck out when I saw it. I'm not a horror guy.
Just you telling me spooked me out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's super creepy. And I can't remember the freaking name of it. I've seen it actually a couple times, but
speaking of Nolan, any of those Batman movies probably qualify with his weird voice when he's in the cowl.
Stop.
I swear to God, swear to me. Okay.
Yeah, it's honestly kind of a lot like Stir of Echoes is the movie. Yeah, Stir of
Echoes.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that. If Stir of Echoes is your unsung gem, nominate it for us and we'll check it out.
But I want to know their weird voices, any noms people have for that. That's a fun category.
I'm sure Gollum would make an appearance.
Zool from Ghostbusters when Dana's possessed by Zool.
There's
no Dana, only Zool.
That's a good one. I like that.
What does Bill Murray say? The Goes is putting moves on my girl.
Man, I need to rewatch that. I haven't seen that forever. He's kind of creepy in that.
For sure.
Yeah. I need to rewatch that.
Awesome. Anything else we want to talk about Dune? Any Dune?
Did we give Rebecca Ferguson enough love? I thought she was phenomenal in this.
I don't think we did. I think she did
I don't
a great
think we
job.
can give her sufficient.
Yeah,
I don't know that we can.
I really
if I could, I would do it in sign language because I really liked all her.
The
the
sign
little
language
hand shit was awesome.
Yeah.
super cool.
Oh yeah.
I like that a lot.
I really liked. I liked how she seemed scared a lot. You know what I mean? Like for some reason, I don't know. I thought her performance was really good, and I thought the way that they chose to have the character react to these situations, like she's a very strong and powerful character, very strong, powerful woman. And it's just cool to see her be so believably scared and then still, get shit done in the face of it. You know what I mean? Like, when push came to shove, she got tough and she made things happen. But I don't know. I just thought it was a really cool to see her not be totally confident, but still,
she's
capable.
cool. I mean, honorable mention for the elevator pitch, the scene where her and Paul are on that scene where they escape basically, and they're using the voice.
Totally.
So freaking cool.
Yeah.
Right.
But to your point, Tyler, about her like not like still showing some vulnerability, it's cool that like she is obviously super powerful and she's part of the Bene Gesserit, but she's completely beholden to them and powerless to them.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to like dealing with Paul, like they're going to do their thing with Paul and she just has to let it happen. And then when Leto later on is like, hey, I'm not talking to you as Paul's mom. I'm talking to you as for the Bene Gesserit. And she's just like not reassuring at all. She's like, no, that's just going to play out how it's going to play out. Sorry.
Yeah.
And I feel like it was part of the elevator scene, but when she fights Javier, when he's like, all right, well, I got to kill this lady now. And then 2 moves later, it's like she has a knife to his throat. It's like, oh, why do you tell me you were a weirding woman or whatever he says?
Yeah.
She was awesome.
That's another thing I was going to say. I really like how we don't know what the weirding way is yet. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't even know that was a thing, honestly, until
we've
we
got
watched.
some pretty good ideas.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, but it's just like, because 84 made such a big deal out of the modules and like how that works. And I like how there's still some mystery. So there's like still some stuff we're going to uncover in the next movie. It's super exciting.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Well, thank you all for joining for Dune. Obviously, we all really enjoyed it, so we highly recommend you checking it out, preferably in theater. But catch us next time, and we are going to be covering both the old and the new. I was pausing for effect, but then I legitimately forgot what.
I know. I was
West Side Story.
West Side Story.
I was like, did he freeze?
Like,
yeah. Like, is this like a Tyler thing? Like, what's in the box? And you're just waiting for us to say the name? Or just like, I didn't know what was happening here. Yeah.
No, I was just like having a stroke on live stream. No, yes, we will be covering the old and the new West Side Story. For whatever reason, the name eluded me. But don't miss it. Both were critically acclaimed. So got a lot to enjoy there.
Excited.
Next time.
Bye.
Everyone.
Got a divorce, right? So he's probably really nervous around women, Maybe you just need to make the first move.
Yeah, but I've never asked a guy out before.
You've never asked a guy out?
No, have you?
Thousands of times! That doesn't make me sound too good, does it?
I don't even know how I would go about it.
Oh, well, what I do is I look a woman up and down and I say, hey, how you doing?